In 2025, you get the feeling that this era of football is coming to an end. It's starting to become clear who the best players in the next generation are going to be. And when we look back at the generation that was, two players set themselves apart as the undisputed GOATs of their generation. Then, you have a group of players right below that level. These players have been part of some of the most iconic football moments of our lifetime. They've won the World Cup, scored 5 goals in 9 minutes, and carried their teams to domestic or European trophies. But will we talk about them when it's all over? Speaking about the NBA, former Lakers guard Spencer Dinwiddie recently said,
if you're not top 5, and I mean like all time, 2 years, 3 years after you're done, they're gonna forget about you, bro. Like, let's be real about who we're still talking about. If you didn't change culture like AI or Steph Curry with the threes, or you're not literally Kobe, Mike, Bron, or do we talk about Penny Hardaway?
With the news cycle being as fast as it is now, if you can't win the biggest trophies or set the most famous records, people may stop talking about you after you're gone. If you're really unlucky, the kids might even say they're completely done with your era. So it's on us, the people who actually still remember these players, to spread our ball knowledge from generation to generation. In American sports and now in the Premier League, we have the Hall of Fame. This is reserved for the very best players of all time, the ones who will go down in history as the icons of their era. But what about everybody else? As I was researching football in the generation before me, I wondered, who was the best in those years besides the legends I know? FIFA have made a World 11 for the past 30 years, but besides ratings on FIFA, there's no way to see the big picture. There's just a pantheon of stories that get passed down. But if you aren't as familiar with that era, I think there's something that's very important for you to understand. Back then, the Premier League was not always the best, and many of the best players in the world played outside of the Premier League. Elite talent was much more dispersed across lots of different countries. My goal is to talk about the best attacking players, midfielders, wingers, and strikers from the 2000s era outside the ones you already know. These players probably will never have an icon card in a future version of EAS FC, so it's our job to tell their stories. Welcome back to Sincere FC. Today's episode is a journey back in time. Normally on this channel, we use data to talk about new ideas and tell stories from the modern game. But today, we'll be looking at the era of football that came before data was part of the game. What you can see now shows every player who achieved at least 10 goals plus assists over 3 consecutive seasons in one of Europe's top 8 leagues between 2000 and 2011. The range of years you see next to their name is the year that 3-year run started and finished. There is no doubt as to who the best players of my lifetime are. They were already in their prime by the end of the 2000s. And apart from them, the prolific attacker of the decade in the top 5 leagues was Thierry Henry. But once you remove Henry, who is left as the furthest player to the right? Introducing Dutch striker Roy Makaay. Makaay was a Dutch striker who got going in the mid-90s, getting a move from Vitesse to Tenerife in La Liga. In his second season with Tenerife, he scored 14 goals, after which he made a move to a team called Deportivo La Coruña. Deportivo was one of the bigger teams in Spain when I was a kid. They were always contenders, but when Makaay came, things changed. He scored 22 goals, won the Golden Boot, and helped them win their first and only La Liga title. This is the same level of shock as when teams like Montpellier, Napoli, and Leverkusen won the title in the other top 5 leagues. All of those team strikers became big names. Giroud, Victor Osimhen, Victor Boniface now. Makaay made that kind of impact. In terms of his play style, kind of plain, clinical, two-footed, no frills in his game. He had elements of Jamie Vardy's ability to run in behind the defender. That was his game in his prime. It earned him the nickname The Phantom. In the years from 1999 to 2003, Makaay was the top scorer in La Liga with 79 goals. He left Deportivo in 2004, signing with Bayern, who beat out Manchester United and Chelsea. In his first 2 seasons at Bayern, he was electric, registering 35 and then 50 goal contributions. The next 2 weren't as good, with contributions in the 20s, but Makaay was the main goal scorer in a Bayern team that lacked depth. The only players besides him to break 10 goal contributions in those years were Schweinsteiger, Michael Ballack, and backup striker Claudio Pizarro. In 2007, Makaay left Bayern and his prime was over, but during that 99 to 06 run, He scored 15 league goals in 6 of those 7 seasons and broke 24 times. Why is Makaay not more famous now? His 46 caps for the Dutch mostly weren't in the big tournaments. Patrick Kluivert and Ruud van Nistelrooy were usually above him in the selection. Bayern also didn't win the Champions League while he was there. But in this era, he was among the 5 to 10 most clinical strikers. And it's only right that we highlight his greatest landmark, spearheading the Deportivo team to winning their only La Liga title. He's also still the holder of a fun record. He scored the Champions League's fastest ever goal against Real Madrid in 2007 after just 10 seconds. If you're a fan of sports content on YouTube, you might be familiar with Secret Base and their series Rewinder, which shows the context behind some of the iconic moments in global sports. We're going to do our own version of that and rewind to some of the iconic moments from the 2000s in the beautiful game. Our first moment comes at Anfield in winter of 2006. The holders Liverpool are locked in a 0-0 game against SL Benfica. The deadlock is broken early in the second half by this goal from just over 25 yards out. Allow me to introduce the goal scorer, Benfica's Simão. Let's go back to a time before the era of Cristiano Ronaldo. Portugal's best player is Luís Figo. In 1999, Barcelona signs another Portuguese winger they call the heir to Figo. Simão didn't play much to start, mostly coming on as a sub. Keep in mind, the actual Luís Figo also played at Barcelona at the time. So Simão went back to Portugal after 2 years, and then he became the man for Benfica in the 2000s. Simão was an early example of an attacker who gained reputation after tearing up the Portuguese league. Modern examples of this would be Bernardo Silva, Ángel Di Maria, most recently Luis Diaz. Simão was not just good, he reached 25 goal contributions a season every year from 2001 to 2007. This notoriety peaked in 2006 when he knocked Liverpool out of the Champions League with that goal at Anfield. Simão was really an inverted winger, much less common in the 2000s era. He was two-footed, could cross from wide, cut in off the left and shoot, and was also deadly from set pieces. He wasn't as rapid as some of the modern wingers. He reminded you of someone like a right-footed Bernardo Silva. Nowadays, players like that are usually deployed deeper or in the center of the pitch. But Simão was remarkably effective in all positions. He posted the same career goal contribution record playing on the left, on the right, or as a central player. He came close to some Premier League moves, but ended up going to Atletico Madrid, where he spent the second half of his prime. Simão was just class for a decade. From 2001 to 2011, he got 10 goal contributions every season from the wing across La Liga and the Portuguese league. He was also a mainstay for Portugal in that time, scoring 17 goals in 50 games between 2005 and 2010. I understand these are not insane numbers, but in that mid-2000s era after Luís Figo, Simão, Deco, and Quaresma were great attackers for Portugal alongside the young Cristiano Ronaldo. Simão flew under the radar compared to Portugal's other attacking players, probably due to a lack of flair compared with players like Quaresma or Luis Nani or Cristiano Ronaldo. But he ended up with so many caps for Portugal because he had a lot more end product than Quaresma and Nani, and gave more defensively than all three. So while Simão didn't bring the same flash, he deserves recognition for his consistent output over many years as one of the best wide midfielders in that era. His spell as the left-sided player in the Atletico Madrid team with Sergio Aguero and Diego Forlan was his most successful, chiefly in their 2010 Europa League victory. But in that moment after Luís Figo, when Portugal needed mature influences in a team that had lots of tricksters, Simão was one of the key veterans alongside the young Cristiano Ronaldo. Let's return to our diagram. This has players from the top 5 leagues, as well as the Portuguese, Dutch, and Scottish League. I know, the Scottish League? But back then, Celtic and Rangers went toe-to-toe with several massive European teams. Now, here's a question. Most would agree that the greatest modern Asian footballer is Heung-min Son. Before his time, we saw the rise of Keisuke Honda in the 2010 World Cup. But which Asian players do you know besides them? More recently, maybe it's Kim Min-jae. If you're older, it might be Ji-sung Park. Of all the players on this diagram, how many do you think come from East Asia? The answer is just one. Introducing midfielder Shinsuke Nakamura. Shinsuke Nakamura came on the European scene when he joined Regina to be the main creative outlet for a mid-table Italian side. After 3 seasons and an outstanding performance at the 2004 Asian Cup, he moved to Celtic, which is where he spent his prime. I know what you're thinking. Hear me out. The Scottish League in general was a different proposition than it is nowadays in the 2000s. Before Nakamura arrived, Celtic had lost the Europa League final to Mourinho's Porto in 2003, and they had beaten Barcelona in the round of 16 of the Europa League in 2004. That Celtic team already had plenty of Premier League talent. They had Stilian Petrov, Venegor of Hesselink, young Aidan McGeady, and prime Craig Bellamy. And then came Nakamura. He'd be at the heart of Celtic's attacking moves. Players in that role, like Nakamura, are becoming less and less common in the modern game. Number 10s, playmakers, and dead ball specialists. Players the manager puts in the 11 despite maybe lacking defensively because they can win a game on their own. The closest modern comparisons to him might be Hakim Ziyech or James Rodriguez. Those guys are dead ball specialists. But Nakamura was the dead ball specialist of that era in Europe. He was linked to clubs in Spain, Germany, and England, but he chose to remain at Celtic because of their manager Gordon Strachan. And while he was there, from 2005 to 2010, he achieved 15 to 20 goal involvements a season from central midfield. And at that time, Celtic was legit. In this window, this is who they lost in the Champions League to. Milan in the round of 16, won it that year. Barca in the round of 16, semi-finalists. They lost to Villarreal and Man United in the group stage, but those teams ended up being quarterfinalists and finalists. And lastly, they lost to Arsenal in the last round of the qualifiers. Arsenal ended up being quarterfinalists that year. I rediscovered Nakamura after seeing his classic free kicks against Manchester United in that 2007 Champions League. Thanks to free kicks like that, this guy is really a bigger-than-life legend in Japan. In that same year, he literally kicked the ball from 30 yards through the window of a moving bus. There's also a clip of him online at some wedding, sniping the figurines of the couple off of the cake while not touching the cake itself from across the room. There's actually a book about his time in Europe and how much of a sensation he was. Before Keisuke Honda and Shinji Kagawa, there was Shinsuke Nakamura. He's one of the great Asian players of the modern era. He got nominated for the Ballon d'Or in 2007. And besides Henrik Larsson, he's probably the greatest foreign Scottish League player in the modern era. Other than Virgil van Dijk, nobody from my generation is even close. Speaking of continents, let's do another rewind. Here's a list of the winners of the African Player of the Year award since the year 2001. Look at the right-hand side. You can see many football legends on this list, like Eto'o, Drogba, Touré, and Adebayor. The older amongst you might remember El Hadji Diouf, who took the world by storm as a young player, only to flame out in his prime. But someone's missing, the 2007 winner. Who could it be? They must have been a legend to have been on such a list. Can you think of it? It was Malian striker Freddie Kanout&e. The world was introduced to the young Frédéric Kanout&e at West Ham. He was one of the lesser-known signings made by then-young manager Harry Redknapp. At West Ham and then at Tottenham, Kanout&e couldn't hold down the striker position. He competed for time with British strikers Jermaine Defoe and Robbie Keane. Defoe and Keane were quick, hard-working strikers. In his youth, Kanout&e was a more languid and skillful player. Defoe and Keane's styles suited the Premier League better as number 9s. When Kanout&e played, he was used as more of a support player. Eventually, he left England, after becoming eligible for Mali in the AFCON due to a rule change. Tottenham's manager got angry that Kanout&e left mid-season, and it was over after that. In 2005, he signed for Sevilla, and this is where he found his prime. Sevilla had some of the best attacking players in the world at that moment, and Kanout&e was exactly what they needed in a finisher. We don't see so many strikers like Kanout&e much these days. Although he stayed between the posts, he had good awareness like players like Alvaro Morata to run and dribble in a way that made space for the teammates. He was lanky, with classy touches and one-touch finishes. And he had that kind of suave Giroud has, exuding class on and off the field. You wanted to root for this guy. From 2005 to 2011, Kanout&eacute scored 20-plus goals in all competitions in 5 of the 6 seasons, breaking 15 La Liga goals 3 times and totaling 79 league goals in 150 games. He showed up in the big games. He scored hatfuls of goals in Europe for Sevilla's 2 Europa League wins, as well as 7 in 15 against Barcelona and 6 in 15 against Madrid. His hat-trick against Madrid to win Sevilla the Spanish Super Cup is definitely a career highlight. And he was prolific for a mediocre Mali team, scoring more than a goal every other game in nearly 50 appearances. He didn't win much during his time in England, but won the Europa League twice and the Spanish Cup twice, all with Sevilla. After players like Samuel Eto'o, Emmanuel Adebayor, and Didier Drogba, Kanout&eacute was Africa's best striker of that era. Let's rewind again. February 8th, 2006, the Copa del Rey semi-final. The eventual league winners, Real Madrid, are taking on a surging Real Zaragoza. In defense that day was a young Sergio Ramos, playing his second season for Madrid, looking to cement himself as one of the best players in the division. What happened next was a massacre. It became one of Madrid's darkest ever days, and a coming out party for one Zaragoza striker. That striker is our next player, one Diego Milito. Diego Milito was playing in the Argentine league in the early 2000s when he was purchased by Genoa in Serie B. He had a decent first season, but picked it up in 04-05, scoring 21 goals to help Genoa win promotion to Serie A. But Genoa were convicted of match fixing and demoted, so Milito went to La Liga. For the next 3 seasons, he became the main striker for a team called Real Zaragoza. Zaragoza has been in the second division for over a decade now, but they had aura in the mid-2000s and are one of the biggest Spanish clubs. It was in this period when we first saw prime Diego Milito. He spent 2 more seasons in Spain, but in 2008, Zaragoza were relegated, and he went back to Genoa. For the next 2 seasons in Italy, he was unplayable. He helped Genoa go from 10th to 5th, then moved to Inter in 2009, and in his first season, he helped them win the treble as their main goal scorer, earning the nickname Il Principe after capping a Champions League run with goals in all 3 of the last rounds. Milito wasn't the flashiest, but he had enough speed and dribbling to beat players, and he was an outstanding finisher, and one of the most efficient 9s of the era. It sounds basic because they're all compatriots, but Milito was like a tall version of Lautaro Martinez, or a silkier version of Higuain. It was his movement and finishing that was his best skill. And for the years between 2008 and 11, Milito was about as good at finishing as one can be. He had one more good season after that, but after 2012, he dealt with harsh injuries and his time at the top was largely over. Diego Milito was a late bloomer, someone whose peak was closer to 30 than 20. But at his peak, he was one of the top 5 forwards in Europe. From 2005 to 12, he reached 15 league goals 6 times, scored 20 goals in all competitions 5 times, and reached 30-plus goal contributions 3 times, all during his second stint in Italy, which was really his prime. Milito wasn't as notable for Argentina, as he competed for playing time with the greats of the 21st century, like Crespo, Tevez, Agüero, and of course Messi. Mysteriously, he didn't play at all at the 2010 World Cup after Inter's treble season. The manager may not have been watching football. Milito is one of the only players on this list to have a FIFA icon card. He was given it to commemorate that 2009-10 Champions League run. Even FIFA knows. I'm not saying the streets totally forgot Diego Milito. Lots of people still talk about him, but it's always in context of the 2009-10 treble season. He was elite for a good half a decade across multiple countries and several teams. I believe the greatest international team of my lifetime is the Spain squad that won 3 consecutive tournaments between 2008 and 2012. Perhaps their most famous moment is this goal against the Netherlands in the 2010 World Cup final. Everyone has seen this pass and Iniesta's subsequent volley, but how does the ball actually get to this position? If you rewind slightly, you can see that it was carried up the pitch about 50 yards by our next player, a young Jesus Navas. If you're in my generation, you might know Navas as the guy who played right back in the Euros after Dani Carvajal was suspended against France. A bit older, and you might remember him playing for Man City in the early years of their first title wins. But the real Jesus Navas came out way back in 2005 as a young wing player for Sevilla. He didn't have many goal involvements to start his career, but he made an impact with his speed off the bench. Navas had skills, but wasn't too flashy. He didn't beat players with moves. He just hit the jets. You wanted Navas in your team because he had the speed to get away from people, but didn't play selfishly and always angle for a shot. The move to get a yard, then play an outswinging cross. That was one of the most consistent ways to create a goal for that Sevilla team. From 2007, Navas was a problem. For the next 6 years, he registered at least 11 goal involvements in every league season he played in. In his prime, he may have been the single fastest attacking player in Europe. I was convinced of this after rewatching the highlights of the 2010 World Cup final. Navas is subbed on for Pedro Rodriguez in the second half and proceeds to put the Netherlands backline on toast. Ooh. There aren't many modern comparisons for Jesus Navas because he barely cut inside from the right.
Whereas players like Arjen Robben became famous for always cutting in onto the left, Navas was like that, but with going right. You knew he was trying to go wide and knock it past you, but you still couldn't stop it.
In terms of a role and a playstyle, Jeremy Frimpong might be close in terms of output.
That's the Frimpong we saw at Leverkusen, not so far at Liverpool. Besides the young superstar Lamine Yamal,
Navas is probably Spain's best right wing in my lifetime besides Pedro, who is more of a forward and a goal scorer than a winger. And Navas had tremendous longevity. When he signed for Man City in 2013, they used him as a right back and as a winger, and he still ended up with 9+ assists every season from 13 to 16. After going back to Sevilla in his 30s, he still got 6 to 8 goal involvements a year, playing right back in the late 2010s. Navas is now Sevilla's all-time leader in appearances. He's won the Prem and 2 League Cups with Man City. He was with Spain for the second half of that legendary 2008-12 run, and he won 6 major trophies with Sevilla, making him the player at Sevilla with the most trophies ever.
So there you have it. In my opinion, each of these players occupies their own square in the tapestry that was elite football in the 2000s. And even if you didn't forget some of these players, we don't hear their names nearly enough from the new generation. This is part 1 of a series we'll be continuing in future videos. Who do you think the streets have started to forget? Leave your best answers in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe. Leave a comment below with what other areas of the game you want to see covered, and I hope to see you again on Sincere FC very soon.